Hello and welcome to TNWKS, the Now We Know show, the show where we discuss a topic of interest and by the end we will have learnt something new and hopefully you will too. I'm Zak.
And I'm Buzz. And I don't know, this week's subject, there's a bit of a giveaway for those people watching on YouTube because I've got a massive pile of gear between me and
Between
Zak.
me?
Between me and Zak, yes.
Yes.
And also, it's October. We've got a bit of Halloween stuff in the background
Indeed.
as well. But anyway, this week's subject, if it's not already a giveaway to some of you, we are talking about rock climbing.
Ooh, exciting stuff.
So yes, this week we're talking about rock climbing.
Rock climbing. We have a great passion for rock climbing.
We've had a passion for rock climbing for
many years.
And but before we start that, when we go out in the wilds to do a bit of rock climbing, because we're going to discuss there's lots of different climbing because there's climbing indoors as well. I always like to fire up the old stove, get some water on and have a brew, which is an ideal moment to have a coffee. And if you guys and girls out there that are watching want to help us,
please buy us a coffee.
You want to help us make more content, then please buy us a coffee. The link is also in the description below.
Wow, you're really getting the hang of this, aren't you?
Yeah, I kind of am.
I've hardly had to step in here at all.
Well, I know, because obviously we put the QR code on the screen, and then it suddenly dawned on me the fact that the QR code on the screen, if you're watching on your mobile, you can't really use it.
That's why you have to screencast to a TV or something.
Oh, right, okay. Well, or
use the link in the description.
Use the link in the description. Now, the other thing I want to say is I might be sounding a little bit bunged up, and that's because I am, and that explains why this week's podcast is
coming out a little
bit later because I've been actually quite poorly. I don't know where I picked this bug up, but anyway, I feel on top of it now.
Don't breathe on me too much.
No, I think you're going to have to disinfect this microphone. But anyway, on to things, okay? So before we crack into our subject this week of rock climbing, it's our usual weekly slot of
Weird and Wonderful.
And it's me this week for a change.
Wow,
so
you brought in a Weird and Wonderful. That's surprising because I usually do that.
I know,
I'm excited to find out what you brought in.
You can do the other one, which is the words of wisdom. Anyway, I've got a Weird and Wonderful, and I've got my Specto Specs on. So let's see.
Hit me with it.
Well, as you know, there's been a lot of disasters around the world weather-wise.
I wouldn't call that wonderful.
No, that's not Weird and Wonderful. That's really sad, and a lot of people have been affected by that. But I thought I'd do something. I was looking through what Weird and Wonderful stories there were this week, and a weather one came up. So I thought, well, okay, we've had a lot of extreme weather. In fact, in the past 24 hours, again, talking about weather, massive solar storm of a serious level hit the Earth. So everybody in the UK...
We already know you're a big space fan.
So loads of people are going, ooh, pretty lights, looking at the Aurora Borealis, not probably realising that it was an actual really serious solar storm, and anything worse than that would probably cause power outages and communication issues and things. But we can wait for that, because the sun hasn't reached its peak until next year in its current cycle. Anyway, moving on to the Weird and Wonderful. Yes, you like this one.
Okay, go on.
BBC weather app predicts hurricane-force winds in London and 400 degrees centigrade in Nottingham.
Come on, that's got to be a technical hiccup, surely.
It is. The BBC has apologised to users after its weather app mistakenly showed forecasts for hurricane-force winds near London and temperatures over 400 degrees centigrade in Nottingham.
Oh, wow.
Oops, don't be alarmed by some of our weather app data, was said by lead BBC weather presenter and meteorologist Simon King.
I wonder if anyone took that seriously.
I don't know. But he said, be assured there won't be, 14,408 mile an hour winds or temperatures of 404 degrees centigrade.
That's that's an inferno.
If that happens, we're all goners. But yes, there was a bit of a glitch on the weather app this week, it would seem. So that's this week's Weird and Wonderful. Yeah, we've had some bad weather,
that is
but
quite
I suppose
hilarious.
it could always be worse.
Yes, and when it comes to weather, that's always going to be a key factor when you are out
Climbing. A good,
Yes,
good tenuous link
It
on
was,
that
it was
one.
a good little one, wasn't it?
I like that one.
So-
I also noticed, for those people listening, Zak is sitting here with his climbing helmet on.
Yeah, and I've got a sling around me as well, and that's
Yep.
not because I've broken my arm. It's a rock climbing swing.
Swing?
Sling.
Well,
I mean,
you could use it as a
You
swing.
could use it as a swing, maybe.
Maybe we have in the
Well,
past.
I wouldn't recommend it.
I've got to say the helmets. There's one thing about climbing that I always found kind of a bit odd, because you see people wearing helmets and they're very, very small.
It's a grivel, a gecko or something.
Gecko,
like that.
but they're very small helmets, aren't they?
Yeah, I think.
And you sort of think,
Okay.
well, that's not really going to make much of a difference if you fall off and
Well,
land on your head. But
the
actually,
idea
the idea is that
is
it's for
that
small,
if anything falls on top of your head,
small
small
rocks,
debris,
small debris, not
and
large debris.
if you like maybe fall down a tiny bit,
Yeah, and just clog
just
your
stops you.
because they are very small helmets, aren't they?
Yeah.
but they're enough to take the jolt out of it if somebody drops something from above.
A tiny bit.
Yeah.
A tiny bit.
But usually it's like, get out of the way.
Yeah. It would be recommended to wear a rock climbing helmet, especially outdoors.
Yeah, especially outdoors.
Not essential indoors.
No, I mean, people do, for health and safety reasons, get you to wear the helmets indoors.
Sometimes.
But maybe that's where we should start. So if you're
Yeah.
listening to this and you've always fancied getting into rock climbing, where, Zak? Actually, to start with, maybe we should give a little
Yeah, I
bit
wonder
of
when you were going to bring this
a
up.
little background on ourselves, really,
Yes.
because I've just enjoyed climbing.
Yeah,
since
you got introduced to rock climbing because of me. Let's go down to the basics.
I mean, I've always been, since a kid, climbing up rocks, climbing probably up cliffs and things that I shouldn't have been doing.
Yeah, that would be called free climb.
Free climbing.
Which is a kind of a part of this.
And then you got introduced to climbing as part of your stunt training.
As part of my stunt training, yes.
For the film
So as one
industry.
of the categories on stunt training, you have to basically fulfill all these different categories of things, and rock climbing is one of them.
One of them. That you can
And when
choose.
I was training for it, it was the single pitch award,
That's
which
right.
I think has actually developed onto the mountain rock climbing instructor
That's
something
it.
or other.
So you did
Now-
you qualified under the single
So
pitch.
I did that, and basically went on to become a
climbing instructor.
climbing instructor, like full time.
Yeah,
This
exactly. You
was a
actually
job
worked
I had.
for a while. You worked as a climbing instructor.
Exactly.
And so, if you wanted to start off getting into climbing, the best place to start?
I would definitely say go indoors. Find the nearest rock climbing centre to you. That might be a leisure centre, or it might be a dedicated like activity centre or something like that. I would say definitely go to one of them. Try out maybe one of their courses. Maybe just go there for, I don't know, like an adventure day or something.
Usually when you go
And
to...
that if you like it, you'll know because you won't be screaming and hollering.
Yeah, I mean, I was
10
going
feet off the
to
ground.
say, usually when you go to these indoor climbing places, you have to go through an induction anyway, don't you?
Yeah.
So they won't let you climb straight away.
No.
Because you've got to be competent in one particular thing at least, which is to tie yourself on properly
And
and to
belay.
belay. Yeah.
Which is kind of two things.
Two things.
Two
well,
things.
yeah, okay. But you got to be able to obviously put your equipment on correctly, make sure you're safely attached, and then you've got to be able to belay somebody. So
Yeah.
when somebody's climbing, you can save them if they fall off.
Because I suppose that's the thing. That is the ability to actually retain knowledge to know I can do this. I'm going to be safe.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of people will say, "Oh, I'm going rock climbing today." Would be to them, they're going to a centre and the instructors and that tying them in, knotting them up, belaying them, doing the whole kit and caboodle, and they're just climbing up the rocks.
Yeah, they're having fun climbing, but not
Not learning.
Let's put it another way. You can actually have the auto braking belays, can't
Yeah,
you?
where you basically
So
attach
you
yourself.
literally put the harness on, attach yourself, climb up the wall, and if you fall off, then that takes.
That being said, that is a very weird experience.
I know. We'll maybe
get used to
We'll
it.
come to those a bit later because I actually hate them, but they,
Yeah.
they work. Don't get me wrong. So
Uh-huh.
don't be scared of them, kids. You know, if you want to go there and you get an auto belay, that's fine, but they're a bit disconcerting.
So going on this kind of field of talking about indoor climbing.
Yep.
Let's talk
what's
about
the first level?
First level is going to be your basics, bouldering.
Bouldering.
Bouldering is you basically, or traversing is also another way of calling
Yep.
it, where essentially you go side across the wall as opposed to going up.
Yeah, I've actually seen. For anybody familiar
It's
with
good for developing technique.
I was going to say, anybody familiar with an indoor climbing wall, I mean, you've probably seen these things, listeners, that you see these ones sometimes. They're even at fairgrounds and places. Sometimes you get those mobile ones people put up. You know, the
Yeah, well,
five
that's
things.
not bouldering.
No, that's not bouldering. But my point is, you know what a climbing wall looks like.
Yeah.
And so when you got one of these indoor walls that's got all the handheld holds on,
Mhm.
it'll have usually it's a red line,
Yeah.
isn't it? Which is
Yeah.
what, probably
yeah.
7 feet off the floor.
Maybe, yeah, around that.
Around about 7 feet. I don't know exactly how high, but
It's
the
the
thing is,
same for all heighted people, so it's literally just that don't go beyond
yeah,
this
don't
point.
go beyond the red line.
Even if you're like somebody who's 5 foot tall compared to somebody who's 6
Yeah.
foot tall, there's still like an up. That's it. It's just a one line.
And you also have bouldering mats, so it might be a centre where the bouldering area has already got, landing mats.
Yeah, like
Or-
huge mats.
Or if you're bouldering outdoors, you take a bouldering mat with you, don't you?
You should do.
You should do. So, but the thing is, you don't go above the red line, and
Yeah.
the idea is it allows you to climb and traverse.
You can either go up to the
point.
go up to the red line, or what is deed safe.
Yeah,
That could vary between centres.
Yeah, and then
Or go across.
That's it. So you can then start bouldering across
Mm-hmm.
either direction, and sometimes they have kind of bouldering sections where, if I'm right, you can go sort of like through tunnels and things.
Again,
So
that's
they're-
going to depend where you go.
But they're still very low to the ground.
Yeah.
So if you do fall off, you're literally just a couple of feet off the ground.
Yeah,
So
if that, yeah.
bouldering's all about developing your foot and hand placement. Would you say?
Yeah, even maybe a bit of endurance because you can basically just go as long as you want, really.
But getting also, so you got endurance there. You're building up your strength in your hands,
And
arms,
technique.
and your technique, and you're only ever going to be a couple of feet off the floor.
And I think one of the, as this has actually become very popular now, bouldering is
And of
a
course
very popular thing, and some people only do bouldering. They don't want to touch the equipment.
Yeah, because I was going to say you don't need any equipment particularly for bouldering apart from a pair of shoes.
Pair of shoes. Let's go to item A for
Item A,
those
so-
watching on YouTube. These are bouldering or rock climbing
shoes.
They're climbing shoes.
Yeah, and for those listening, they're a bit like a plimsoll.
Yeah.
But they've got no grip, particularly on the.
They're very
base.
tight to your feet.
Very. Oh no, I've worn these. And
They're supposed to be very.
They're
tight
supposed to be tight.
your
So it's almost like having a barefoot.
Hmm.
And it's got a very pointy toe. On
Yeah,
it.
very durable.
But they're very quite hard as
yeah,
well.
on the
On
bases,
the rubber,
yeah.
they don't flex too much because it's really all to do with your toes.
Yeah.
Well, you do jam your feet in at different places and things.
Depends how advanced you're going, but yeah.
But it's a
Toe
lot of,
jams.
It's a toe jams, but it's a lot of toe work and ball of your feet. So yeah, but they're if you want to invest in something to start with, it's a good pair of climbing shoes.
Yeah, they. It's bad to say, but they are kind of designed to be uncomfortable.
Yeah, they are uncomfortable.
They are an acquired taste.
But I would say, I mean,
but they do the job. They do the job.
If you're going to just randomly climb up some rocks and you got your walking boots on,
Yeah.
that's fine. But I will already point out that your walking boots for walking have got such chunky soles on and things. You really can't get the grip you would get with a pair of climbing shoes.
Exactly.
Because climbing shoes are like climbing with bare feet.
Mhm.
Gives you the dexterity of bare feet almost. Yeah, would you agree with that?
Yeah.
So let's put item A to one side.
Yeah, just find a place for it.
Yeah.
Oh no, you're not jumped the
Okay, so
microphone.
sorry about that. So your minimum input is climbing shoes, yeah,
and
and
a chalk bag.
chalk bag.
I
Of
haven't
course.
got a chalk bag with us today
Well, I don't
because
think that's
it's
a bad
very
thing. Chalky.
chalky and messy.
Yeah, so you'd have that usually hanging off your harness, and which you don't actually need if you've got if you're just bouldering. But the chalk bags themselves come with just
Yeah,
a
it's
little
good for
belt.
the grip on the hands, especially when they get sweaty.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I like about the chalk bags is if you get one of the chalk balls.
Yeah.
It's like a cotton bag of chalk which goes in your chalk bag because you just literally squeeze the ball because you're holding on with one hand and you need to put your hand in the bag and rather than like pulling out a handful of chalk that's just literally going to go everywhere, you just squeeze the chalk bag and then switch over and do that. I think they're pretty cool.
Well, that's always one of the jokes at rock climbing centres and things. It's like you got the different types of chalkers. You got the ones that are all right, and then the ones that make a complete and utter mess. They're completely over chalk. And then I have got to hoover it up.
Hoover it up.
Which isn't fun.
Over chalking. I tell you, well, there's going to be a few gags I think coming along when we talk about further into the climbing.
Okay. Okay, so perhaps moving on from the rock climbing centres.
Okay. Because at the rock climbing centres, if you're there, you've got one person who's belaying at the base and person climbing up to the top. And normally when they get to the top...
And that will either be the rope going all the way to the top to a fixed anchor point at the top, and then somebody basically being belayed all the way up, or somebody basically lead climbing or sports climbing their way up, but that's not putting in any of the equipment that you would outdoors.
Exactly.
Because there is a big jump in like what you need to know between indoors and outdoors.
Yeah, so sports climbing. For anybody listening, if you do sports climbing indoors, you have every so often there'll be a metal ring which is bolted to the climbing wall. Yeah,
I'll get a little thing.
Okay, so and you basically, as you're climbing up, you get to a metal ring, and then from your harness you unclip a.
Well, in some centres, these will already be attached.
Oh, they will.
They will already be dangling.
Right, and this is
from that is called a quick draw.
A quick draw. And it's basically got two carabiners, one on each end.
So, what type of carabiner is this?
Well, there you go. I know what this one is because it's got a curve. That's putting your rope in.
That's the one for putting your rope in, yes.
And that one's for attaching to the wall.
Yes.
So there's two carabiners and the gate on them. One's straight and one's curved. And the curved gate is for your rope to slip in. Yeah? Don't know what it's called. Oh, come on, Zak.
Oh, I know the other ones are called screw gate carabiners.
Okay.
I think that's just the.
It's just called a clip gate or an open gate.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so you've got this little thing which
I should know that. I'm really upset.
Probably it's the same material used on a sling, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's about 6 inches long. It's got a carabiner each end.
Yeah.
For those people listening, for those people can see it on the video, there you go. So what you do is you climb up there, and then you'd basically clip on to the wall.
Yep.
Then grab your rope and clip it into the lower one.
Yep.
Yeah. And then if you come off, you're only
going to fall
to the
as
lowest
far
as the lowest one.
As that.
And
you then climb
to
progressively
the next point,
up to the wall.
Keep putting these in.
All the way up.
All the way up until you get to the top of the wall. And then you have to come and collect them all if you're coming back down. Or
if they're supposed to be left there, then just leave them there and just unthread the rope.
And if somebody, and then let's just say that you're in a position where they've got a wall where you can actually get off the top of the wall, and somebody's following you up, and you're belaying them from the top of the wall, then they collect all the gear on the way up. Yeah.
So what they would normally call these would be like a wire gate, or just literally a carabiner.
Okay.
They don't have many fancy names other than the screw gates.
Okay, so there you go. So that's pretty much basically sports climbing. And when we went down to a place called Winspit Quarry down on the south coast,
it was very much that.
It's obviously a rock quarry, but it already got all the points that had been drilled and fixed into the cliff face
without said quick draws that you need to attach.
So you literally take your rope and your quick draws, and it was the same on Portland Bill, wasn't it?
Portland Bill.
That had a series of climbs.
I think so.
Yeah, Portland Bill. We went down there.
I can't
remember. Did a bit of wild swimming as well.
We've been so many places. For a moment, okay, let's go to the books.
Okay.
Let's go to the books.
So
because
you're done with your climbing centre now.
Yeah, you go, oi, I want to go out
climbing.
Rock climbing in the wild.
How do I find out where to go?
I feel competent in all my techniques and everything. I feel safe and confident that I can do this.
My equipment is
I would probably still recommend you actually take somebody who's an instructor outside.
You can't really climb unless you're free,
initially.
Unless you're free climbing, which is we'll touch upon briefly in a minute.
Yeah. You're still going to need someone.
You're going to be a minimum of 2.
Yeah, exactly. But I would still, if it's your first time, I would still probably recommend taking a instructor.
Somebody that's got experience.
Yes, exactly.
So,
and then you can get one of these, which is a rock climbing book.
Okay.
There's Rock Facts.
Right.
Great rock climbing.
This one's called Eastern Grit.
Which tells you all the routes for different places.
Are they all called something Grit or not?
No, this is called West Country Climbs.
West Country Climbs. Now, for those people, again, a little bit of ASMR, is it?
Yeah.
For those people listening, you can hear all this, right? These are all post-it notes.
Post-it notes and little
for those people watching, you can actually see that these books are crammed with all the climbs that we've done.
Yeah. Yes. I like to make notes. Some people say it's a waste of time, but I like it.
Yeah, we like all the little note-taking that we've got.
Because, of course, you can just look back like we are now and just find one.
So so I'm just opening up randomly any page here, and it gives you a lovely picture of a particular rock face climb, and it gives you all the different routes, and it also gives you the difficulty level of each route, so you can choose those. So it's got loads of these are indispensable.
Yeah, I would definitely say that they are worth it.
They add to the fun because you can find some really good stuff.
Because sometimes it could be like just going out into the wild. is this a climbing place I don't know? Because there aren't any signposts for these things usually. But basically, definitely get a rock facts book for wherever you're going.
Yeah.
And sometimes, this is a personal recommendation here, it might be a bit difficult to find these things even still. So to get a broader perspective of potentially where you're going to park, etc., I would get an OS map for wherever you're going as well.
Ordnance survey map.
Yeah, there's a little cross-reference between the two. You should be onto a winner to find where you're going.
Exactly. So anyway, I did mention free climbing. Free climbing is basically where you climb without any equipment at all.
Yes, it's for those daredevils.
And it's not one that I particularly recommend. I mean, there are some
I wouldn't
amazing...
recommend it.
No, there are some amazing free climbers out there that climb huge, ridiculous places. But when you get onto you see them on the
I mean, good for them.
You see them on the overhangs, and they're like 400 feet up, and you're thinking, there's no going back.
Yeah.
There's no, I'm getting tired, I want to stop now.
Yeah. There's no rescue.
And one that we experienced, we were rock climbing down at a place called Rocher Rocks.
Yeah.
And it's a lovely, lovely little place. It's got like an old church on the top of it.
Yeah.
And we were climbing around the back, and then this guy started coming up alongside us, and he was free climbing. He was enjoying himself until he got, I think he was definitely at least 60, 70 feet off the ground.
Something like that.
And then he stuck his hand in a crevice, and a whole bee's nest erupted out of it. And he was up there going, bees. And he was stuck because the thing is, what are you going to do?
There's nothing he can do. There's nothing anyone else can do. You just got to endure it.
He had to just shut his mouth and keep climbing.
And on that note, there's also a really good documentary called Free Solo, if you ever check that out, for people that brave to do such free climbing. But anyway, talking about lead climbing and all that jazz, perhaps we should go to our big pile of equipment.
Yes, there's a massive amount of gear here.
So all of this is attached to a harness. I would not recommend taking all of this
in one go
at any one time.
It's kind of like know your climb.
Yeah.
Estimate what you need.
So perhaps we should go.
This is all connected to one singular harness at the moment.
Yeah, at the moment. So have some of those.
Okay, so I have a
Can you tell our wonderful listeners and viewers what they are?
Right, so for those listening, I've got a carabiner, and it's got all these lovely wires on it. And there's sort of like a wire with a loop, wire loop. But on one end of the wire is a loop that attaches to your carabiner, so you can pop it off the carabiner. So if I just pop one off the carabiner, there you go. So this is the little one. And then on the other end of the wire is kind of like a little metal weight, if you want to look at it like that. If you imagine the shape of a cow's bell, a cow's bell, it's like that, and they all come in different sizes. So it's got this little weight on the end. Now,
if I pull my one, look at the size of that monster.
Yeah, and that one is more like a kind of deformed spanner, isn't it? So if you were using spanners to undo nuts, you had what do you call it? It's sort of like a multi-wrench where you got all the different sized heads. It's kind of like that, but they're odd in their shape.
Yes,
they're not uniform.
So these are nuts.
Yes, and these
nuts. Are bits of gear that you put into the cracks and crevices whilst you're climbing up a mountainside.
So you're putting the cowbells ones in, or you're putting, they're called hexi nuts, aren't they?
Hex nuts, or just nuts in general, is just a general term for all of these things.
And this is where we get into the funny thing, when you're on a climbing course and the instructor says, right, you need to put your nut in a crack.
You need to jam your nut into a crack.
Jam your nuts into a crack, okay? And make sure they fit tight in that crack, you know?
Because, okay, let's use a big one as an example of this.
Oh, it's like Christmas, you've got all these bells going.
Yeah, I know. Because remember, okay, ladies and gentlemen, the fact that you have to use the correct ones and guesstimate, based upon experience, what nut is going to fit into what crack.
Exactly.
And remember, you're dangling, if you're lead climbing in this instance,
so
there is no rope above you. If you fall off,
it's the belayer.
You've got to rely on your placement of these.
Yeah, you've got a belayer at the bottom, and you've been basically putting in your gear. So you've been sticking your nuts
all the way up.
You've been sticking the right size nuts into the different cracks.
Yep.
And all being well, if you slip, you're only going to go back to the last nut you put in a crack.
Yes.
And your blade's going to catch you.
The more you put in, the safer you are.
Yeah,
That's what I'm going to say.
So, if 2 pop out, you're going to go back to number 3, aren't you?
If anything, the most dangerous point for lead climbing is the point between you leaving the floor and putting in your first few sets
Yes.
of equipment.
Exactly. So
because if you haven't got anything in the wall, you're just going to fall
straight to the floor,
which ain't great.
No,
I can tell you that.
Exactly. So and not being funny, some of the, I mean, that's a tiny one.
Yeah. And if you think that you could rely on that,
that is about that's the same size as my little fingernail.
Yeah. Because it's not like a universal tool or anything. These are basically do the best you can.
So when you slip these into a crack, okay, your nut goes in the crack, and you've got to test it for the downward force. But of course, when you're removing your nuts from the crack, then you wanted to be able to pull it upwards so it'll come out easily.
So it'll come out easily. Yeah.
But just in case your nut gets stuck in a crack, you have something around here.
Yes, you have a nut removing tool.
It's called a nut removing tool.
Yes.
So for denutting,
definitely have a nut removing tool. Highly recommended.
That has got to be on your harness. So you have your nut tool. So if you do get a nut jammed, because that's the thing. If you're as Zak says, if you're lead climbing and you're placing all the equipment in, when you finally get to the top of the climb, and set up your anchor points, and you're ready to then belay your partner from above, the partner coming up after you has got to get all that gear out of the wall.
Yes.
And that's when they might find they need that nut removing tool. However, there are bits of equipment that are not nuts.
Yes.
And ideally, hopefully, you won't need the nut remover for them.
Well, yeah, that would be... Okay, I will say that these are kind of highly specialised and not required. They are just a tool which is pretty cool.
A tool that is cool.
Tool that is cool.
Yeah.
Do you want to have this one?
I'll have that one. Yeah, these are pretty cool. And not cheap either, if I remember.
Yeah, that's what I was going. They are not essential, and if you are going lead climbing, I would not say entirely rely on these. No. I would say definitely use...
the nuts.
Nuts as well, if you're going to use
these. Mind you, are these not particularly kind of make the job easier when you're doing overhangs?
The point is... These are camming devices.
Got that? Camming devices.
Camming devices. C-A-M.
Yeah, and these ones you basically put the base in your palm, pull the lever down, and they decrease in their size. Once you've got it in the crack, then it'll just open up.
It'll open up to fix into the crack.
And the more pressure that is pulled on it, the more those cams will want to open and grip. So you get... So if you do fall, they'll actually grip stronger.
On all these bits of gear, it's all about getting the most surface area in contact with
the rock
as possible, because that's going to produce the most friction to stop you from falling.
Exactly. Which is not a good idea.
It's not good.
That's what you're trying to prevent.
And that's why you never jam your equipment into a dirty crack.
Don't stick your nuts in a dirty crack, because if it's dirty, it's more likely to slip out, isn't it? And it's like what they say, don't stick your fingers in a dirty crack either, because your fingers are then going to get wet and dirty and you could lose your grip.
Also with camming devices, don't jam them in too far, because if you can't pull them back to take them out, that's a lot of money you've left stuck in there.
I mean, these are about, 60 quid a piece, some of these?
If you're buying them brand new, I would not be surprised if you would have to spend triple digits.
Yeah.
For one.
And
I think I got them from the second hand actually, but they've done me good.
Yeah,
over the years.
They've all been tried and tested.
And essentially, see, look how tiny that one is.
That is a tiny cam.
It's ridiculously tiny.
Yeah.
But the idea with these is that they essentially give you a bit more range for use, as opposed to the fixed
nuts. Yeah. So you've got those, but one thing we haven't spoken about is your actual rope.
Actual rope.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to go on to the ropes. Allow me to just move all of this stuff out.
Rope isn't just rope, is it?
No, rope isn't just rope when it comes to climbing. You have two types of rope that are going to be stuff you're going to be relying on. So what we have here is a static rope, which is different from your dynamic rope, which has the stretch in it. This is very taut.
So you're climbing with a dynamic rope.
You're climbing with a dynamic.
And that is dynamic because it has a stretch in it, which
will kind of cushion the fall to a degree.
If you fall, it'll just take the whip out of it. Yeah.
Whereas this is
that's just going to stop you dead.
Very strong. This is only 10 meters, and you're not going to get anywhere with 10 meters of rope. I can tell you that. So when it comes to basically climbing up to the top of your climb, if you're lead climbing, what are you going to do when you have to bring up your mate?
Right, so we're in a position where you've now surmounted your climb. You may be onto your first, your top of your cliff, let's just say. Let's just say it's cliff climb, and you're at the top of the cliff, and you're now talking about you've got to bring the person up from behind. But of course, if you are belaying them and you're not attached to anything or anything like that, then they can pull you off the cliff, can't they?
Yes. So and that's where anchor points come into play. So when it comes to setting up your anchor points, you can use a sling, of which you can double it up to essentially double your strength.
Okay.
You can wrap that around trees, boulders, etc., etc., etc.
So for those people listening, this is a long piece of kind of really strong nylon flat cord, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, called a sling.
So
I think sometimes I do refer to them as cow's tails.
I don't know why.
Well,
why did you do that?
I need a cow's tail.
That's just annoying. Anyway,
got your slings.
You got your sling, but obviously the anchor point isn't going to do anything by itself. So you need to attach yourself, if you'll be laying your partner, up to you.
Right.
So you need to attach yourself to the rope. Well, you already attached the rope, and at the moment you're potentially at risk from falling off a cliff
or being pulled.
So you need to attach yourself first to anchor points.
As soon as you're up on that cliff, your first priority. Get me onto an anchor point.
Yes.
And that anchor point might not even be necessarily one you're going to use for your rope.
Exactly. Okay. So, when you've set up essentially 2 or 3 anchor points, you then need to link your rope that's connected to you and then subsequently your partner down the bottom of the cliff to each anchor point.
Right.
And then you have to adjust yourself to basically being sitting on the edge in a safe position so you can belay them up the cliff.
Now, you mentioned about 2 or 3 anchor points, and I think that's very crucial to point out to the listeners that you need to have, these anchor points because if one fails, you need a backup. So, minimum of 2, probably don't need more than 3. No. So as long as you've got
connecting the rope to the slings, of course, use a carabiner. This is a screw gate carabiner, which again has that extra safety bit of feature.
Yeah, because that's something you do, isn't it? Once you whatever you're using on a screw gate, like you have a screw gate on your harness, it's that click click click. You kind of do it without thinking about it.
Exactly.
You just hear that little noise and you go, "Yep, I'm safe." And it's all those things that make you feel completely safe. Because I've mentioned this in another podcast. If I'm up on a cliff top and I haven't got a harness on, so I'm just going out for a nice walk. You feel very unsafe.
Yeah.
But as soon as I've got my climbing gear on and I know I've got anchor points back, I could abseil off without even thinking about it because I know I'm 100% safe.
Exactly. So perhaps at this point we should also talk about how obviously we've now belayed our partner up the cliff.
Yeah,
they've taken out all the gear.
They've been using their nut remover.
And there you are. But there's also another thing you could do if you weren't lead climbing. And that is, if we go back to the indoor scenario, you have that magical anchor point at the top of your climb. But one thing you have to consider is, how did that get there? How did the rope get up there in that first place? To set up such things in the wild is essentially where your static rope comes in.
Right, okay.
So
please explain.
Imagine there is also another way to walk down or up to the top of this cliff.
Right, so you've actually got a walkway that can get you up to the top of the cliff.
Yeah, up and down, or whatever. So to set that up, I mean, you could technically set up one of these climbs if you lead climbed up to it and then set it up. But anyway, so with that, you would attach the static rope to your anchor points, do a figure of 8 knot with some carabiners, dangle it over the side with the rope you're actually going to be using, your dynamic rope. That's threaded through that. And then basically you've set up your own little system there, which you can use again and again and again. You don't have to worry about any of the equipment and things like that, which is pretty cool.
There you go.
There we are.
Okay. Now,
can I have a horn at least for that?
Oh, yeah, of course. What we're doing. There you go.
Do it more properly.
There you go.
There you go.
Zak, I've been so fascinated in what you've been saying about the climbing. I should have given you lots of horns.
Well, admittedly, this is more of a conversation. This is less of a I'm telling you how to do it. It's more of a saying what I do type of thing.
However, you've given me this thing to hold on to.
Yeah.
And it's well, I don't know. Is it a ring? Is it a child's sort of dummy toy or something? I don't know. What is this? It's like an out of shape number 8.
It's a figure of 8 descender.
Yes, what it is. And
You know what it is. You've already mentioned abseiling.
Yeah, I love these.
This,
Yep.
ladies and gentlemen, is not a belay device.
No,
This is a belay device.
that's right. That's for safety.
This is safety.
That's for sliding.
This is for sliding.
Is it?
Don't use that for this.
But I do.
But you could use this for this.
You could do, yeah. But I do love the abseiling, and the figure of 8s are great for that.
Yeah.
Although you get other ones, don't you?
What?
Devices for abseiling.
There are a couple of different things out there, especially to like reduce the friction.
'Cause
If you're going down like a huge descent, like when you get these ones where they're going off plateaus and
because you
things.
get the ones where they go in and out of wheels.
Yeah.
I can't think of the name of them because we don't use them.
So as well as having your standard belay device,
Okay, I've got the standard belay.
no
device.
moving parts, very reliable.
Exactly.
We also have this little
Ooh, funky little belay.
interesting little thing, which is called a gree-gree.
Gree-gree.
Now the difference between that and this is the rope essentially goes into this device, threads through, sandwiched in there, and it's quite versatile actually, but definitely master the standard belay device before you move on to this, because this has a lot of moving parts and things can go wrong with it if not set up correctly.
Is what you can just control it on the lever, can't you?
You can control the descent on the lever. Basically, the further you pull that back, the easier it is the rope will
flow through it.
Thread back through.
Right.
For the descent of
okay, so you can just literally.
It could be you. You could be actually abseiling off of a wall with this as well, or if you're lowering somebody down.
Okay.
And it's very simple, quick, and easy. Whereas that can take a bit of threading.
Do you know, this is really making me miss climbing.
I know. I know.
It's just really cool having all this gear here. So yeah, well that's a fantastic introduction to climbing. I mean, I don't suppose anybody is expected from this podcast to actually learn how to climb.
No, I would definitely.
What we're trying to do
is more of a conversation.
This is a conversation,
talking through a couple of the things,
and kind of learning about climbing. So if it's something you've always fancied doing and have just never taken that extra step,
I would say this type of climbing, outdoor climbing, can be an acquired taste because it kind of has. You have to kind of buy into it and buy all the equipment and things, which can be a bit costly. But if you're interested in climbing from a basic, just from the start, I want to climb, definitely start off with the indoors centres.
Yeah, definitely. I've had great times on the indoor ones.
You don't have to progress to outdoors, but
I
it's
think
there if you want it.
I think the thing is, though, for me on the outdoor climbs, it's because I mean, it's being in different places that are not manufactured, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I must admit, a lot of the climbing places, we went to that big climbing place up in Sheffield, didn't we?
Yeah.
And that was just, I mean, a huge, fantastic place, but lots of screaming kids. And that's a big difference when you are off somewhere like you're in a quarry or a mountain and there's nobody about.
Yep.
And it's just the peace, and it's you challenging yourself to get up or get down. And one of my favourite things is the abseiling. So I love abseiling.
Yeah. It's easy.
Apart from if you one thing we haven't mentioned is having a prusik knot, and
we do have the bits for the prusik here.
Yeah, one of
these bits of
one of the essential kind of knots to remember to use is to put a prusik knot on
in certain cases.
In certain cases, and we like a prusik knot for abseiling. But I did actually get my prusik knot jammed into my belaying device,
and that was actually one of.
Yeah, that was a standard belaying device. And I was on dynamic rope, and I'd gone over the top of this thing, and I'm basically going down. And it got it was an abseil where I'm using my feet initially to walk my way down, and then there was a big overhang. So I ended up literally having to then drop off the overhang, which then caused the dynamic rope to stretch to its maximum because of my body weight.
Yeah.
And my brushing knot got caught in my belay device.
Which ain't great.
And so that was about 40 feet off the floor. Stuck. Dangling. And it was my own mistake, okay, because what I should have done, ladies and gentlemen, what I should have done was have another emergency Prusik knot on my harness
to release.
So what I could have done was tie a Prusik knot above the belay device, put my foot into the actual rope, and then just released the pressure and done it. But it took me a right old wiggle to get out of that one. But I did it.
It's also a fun story.
It is a fun story. Which then once I released it, sent me whizzing down the rope about 40 feet very quickly, but survived. And we laughed. We laughed. Did we laugh?
So did I. I survived.
We laughed a lot as I hurtled towards you.
Yeah. Deary me.
Yeah, but that is another thing. You can't take chances with outdoor climbing, you know, and
but
mistakes
again,
can be made. It doesn't matter how experienced you are.
You can certainly take too much gear on a climb, but you really got to get in tune with it. You've got to judge it based upon your experience. How much stuff do I actually need for this? I don't want to overweigh myself to make it more difficult for myself, because that's just counterproductive.
Yeah.
But you don't want to take too little, because if you miss something that you need.
Exactly. You certainly wouldn't want to climb up a rock face, and because you haven't got enough gear, put those points that too so far apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to go. What would be your distance to finish off with? Kind of, what would your distance between if you're climbing up the wall and you put your first point in, first bit of gear goes in? Ooh. How do you judge before you get to your next bit of gear?
Are we talking about indoors or outdoors?
Outdoors.
Outdoors. Okay, so this is always going to be bound by.
Obviously, rock faces.
The route is going to be bound by the route, and obviously the cracks in the rock and things like that to what you're going to be able to do. If you haven't got anything, then you've got to be damn sure that when you can then do something, you can do it quickly.
Yeah.
But I don't know, head height to arm's reach for a one to at least establish something. Yeah. Because if you set it too low, then
it's not going to do
anything. But
after, what I'm saying is, after you start setting it up, you want to make sure you're not setting it up. If you're not going to leave like 70 feet between a point.
No.
So,
no.
I think that's good.
In regular intervals, as best you can.
As best you can. Yeah, that's a good.
So perhaps to bring this almost to a close, can you remember, Buzz, as a little challenge here? Can you remember?
I'll just hoot me
how to do a figure of 8 knot? Now, bearing in mind you are not wearing.
Let's move me nut
remover. I haven't got harness at all. So perhaps just doing the standard.
Gosh, I haven't done this for ages.
Figure of 8. You don't have to do rethreaded. You don't have to.
Okay, so I would normally be standing up, and I'm sitting down.
To add context to this knot, this is the knot that you would use to attach yourself to the rope.
Yeah, normally this rope would be.
This would be the dynamic rope normally, but for this situation, this is what we have.
Exactly, and I would normally be standing up, and I would take a bite of rope, probably from head height to the floor.
Never expected to do this in front of mics, did you?
No. So I'd sling the rope over and under on itself.
Okay.
And then get the tail in and go back through. Yeah, like so. Yeah.
Let's just clean it up a bit. Yep.
Uh-huh. Then I'll thread the bottom in from the top of my harness.
Yep, so you don't fall backwards.
That's it, down and through, and then I would come back in through my knot and follow the rope.
Follow the root of the knot.
The root of the knot back through.
Because it's rethreaded. Yeah.
Rethreaded. Okay. Now, obviously, I'm meant to be attached to this, and I'm not. Do you want to be my attach point? There you go.
Okay.
Oh, there you go. Tidy it up a little bit, but it's there. There you go.
Okay.
Have you got it?
It's not finished.
Not finished.
You've not finished it.
I've not finished it. Would you normally want me to tie off the end then?
Okay. You're good, but you haven't finished it.
Okay, show me what.
Okay, let's start
it's
again.
It's a little bit awkward because I'm not normally standing there with a harness on.
Normally you're attached to the harness and you're standing up and you've got all the space in the world and you don't have to dodge
microphones.
So what you do?
Yep.
So this is standing up. Yep. You'd measure that out.
Measure your rope.
Dangle it to the ground. This is what I do anyway. Throw it over itself.
Come on, he's going over it and he's coming back through his loop.
Yeah.
Oh, it makes it look so easy.
To make this lovely
Figure of
little
8 shape.
figure of 8 knot there, just showing the camera.
Yep.
Then can you be my
Yeah, there you are. I'll stick me. I'm a
my harness? Thank
right,
you.
I'm the harness.
Can you a bit more? There you go.
Okay, so I've now got the knot really close to the harness.
So what you need to do is you need to literally re-thread it through the exact route you just came through.
Okay, which I thought I had done, but there you go.
But you didn't do it all the way.
Oh, now, or didn't do it all the way. Remember, you've got to go all the way with these things. Oh, I see. I missed a...
Yeah, you missed a hole.
I missed a hole. Right, I see. I didn't come back round and up.
Yeah.
Right.
So here we have your re-threaded figure
of 8.
of 8 knot. This is attached to your harness,
Okay.
leading onto the main rope. But then we do have
That's what I was saying.
a little bit of a tail.
And then, just to an emergency, we can just put a bite in the end of that.
No.
No?
You need a stopper knot.
A stopper knot.
So
I thought that was a stopper knot.
no.
Okay.
Stopper knot here, just to stop that getting
Oh,
tangled in
hang
anything.
on, hang on. Yeah, I haven't tied it to the other rope.
You have to wrap it around the main rope once, twice, maybe 3 times. Then up through the middle.
Got it. Got it. Just it's been a while since I've done this.
That helps when you're a rock climbing instructor. I have to practice every day.
Yeah.
There you go.
Stopper knot.
Stopper knot on a re-threaded figure of 8.
Yeah. Sorry.
You're safe.
Yeah, I did my stopper knot wrong.
Admittedly, this tail could be
bit-
considered a tiny bit long,
Yeah.
but I've already pulled that quite tight, and that is not
Yeah,
coming undone.
because that could end up snagging in your gear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you can always just do another knot just to shorten that down.
Yeah.
Again.
Just tuck it in.
Yeah.
You don't have to undo the whole knot just because you've got a slightly longer tail.
Depends who you ask, actually.
Yeah.
If there's any,
Take it apart. Do it again.
You'd be surprised how long that can take when you're taking like a group of
Oh, I see. Yeah.
little kids.
You mean they've done their stopper knot and they've still got 3 foot.
Yeah. Well, if they're actually in like professional like training programs,
Yeah.
not as opposed to like people are going, "Hey, I'm going climbing today, mummy." But anyway, there you go.
Well, there you go. Well done, Zach.
I can remember knots.
You can-
That's
you can do-
good.
you can
I
do
can
knots.
climb up a rock face, but can I set up a tarp?
Now, you
Maybe
see,
not.
that's my point. I do all my tarp knots for my bushcraft, and I'm so used to doing those.
Yeah, you're doing.
I don't think about it.
Ironically, you do the knots that are easy to come undone,
Yeah.
whereas I do the knots that
You
don't
want-
come undone.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, literally, I spend my time perfecting knots that can easily just with one pull come undone.
Completely reverse for me.
Completely the reverse from rock climbing. The lesson we can take from this is don't get Buzz to tie your knots when you're rock climbing. Otherwise, it's like going climbing with an elven rope. One pull and poof, it's done.
You don't want that. You really
want
don't.
that. You really don't want that. Anyway, which leaves us with one thing to do.
And that is
Wisdom of the week.
okay. So for this
Come
one,
on, hit me with your wisdom, Zach.
I'm going to throw my wisdom at you.
Have you done what I did? Try and relate the wisdom to the topic.
I have actually. This is
Ooh,
actually
I
quite
like that.
interesting. So
So rock climbing wisdom of the week.
here we have the quote.
Go for it.
It is-
Bestow your wisdom.
Mountains are not fair or unfair. They are just dangerous.
Yeah, that's
So if
true.
that doesn't inspire you to go rock climbing, I don't know
What will?
It's got to be something you want to do.
Definitely. But whatever you do out there, you really, really, really must make sure that you...
Safety is key.
Safety is key because it's so easy. You don't have to be literally a couple of feet off the floor, and if you slip, you can break your ankle. As easy as that. So
Not fun.
Not fun. And trust me, I have fractured my ankle before, and you don't want that. You don't want that. Yeah. So let's. And that wasn't climbing, so don't worry, guys. I'm not trying to put you off.
We already did that in the Cornish wrestling one. The
Exactly.
Cornish wrestling shin kicking.
Shin kicking.
Cotswold Olympic Games. Go check
exactly.
it out.
Yeah,
we did
no.
a podcast on
Yes,
it.
we did. So that's climbing, and frankly, there's a lot of other areas of climbing we haven't covered because
This has been a kind of a very brief overview, maybe highlighting a few different things in it to kind of pique people's interest.
just to say, it is a really, really, really fun activity, pastime, sport, hobby, call it what you will.
Oh, there you go. Just a random idea for the Now We Know Show podcast. Could we do a podcast
While climbing.
while climbing?
Well, we'd have to probably use Bluetooth lapel mics, maybe.
Suspended on a cliff,
Suspended on a
dangling
cliff.
over a precipice.
You could probably do a podcast easy enough if we were on top of a cliff, getting everything together, and then abseiling off.
Maybe.
Because if it goes wrong, all you're going to hear is
I'll probably get some views on YouTube.
But let's not do that.
No. Okay.
Anyway, so there you go, climbing. It's great fun.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please like and subscribe to this channel and comment below any suggestions of topics or activities you'd like to listen to in future episodes. That's a super safe sling around a tree and a boulder just to make super sure I'm super safe whilst belaying my friend up the cliff. Goodbye from Zak.
And that's a don't stick your fingers in a dirty crack. Goodbye from Buzz.